Bluegrass Jam Along is proud to be sponsored by Collins Guitars and Mandolins, each and every one built from the sound up in Austin, Texas. Hi, this is Matt, and you're listening to Bluegrass Jam Along, the podcast for anyone and everyone who loves bluegrass. Hey everybody, welcome back to Bluegrass Jam Along. There's a slightly new format on the podcast in that this is your Bluegrass Briefing for October 2025. Rather than do a briefing every week, I've decided to switch things up a bit and do a briefing first week of the month and then concentrate on interviews for the rest of the month, just to give me a chance to not have to put out 2 episodes a week, which is getting a little bit much. Don't fret, there'll still be plenty of news, new releases, all that kind of stuff coming your way. And leaving me time to concentrate on getting some really good interviews out as well. So it's all good, just mixing things up slightly. Just want to take a moment to welcome new listeners to the podcast. Feels like there's been a bit of an influx in the past few weeks, which is great. Welcome. If you are new, have a dig around, find some stuff. There are nearly 500 episodes now, so there's plenty of stuff there. Good to have you here. So let's crack on. What have we got? Let's just chat about podcast news before we crack on with the other bits. Latest episodes. If you are new, if you've not caught up for a few weeks, I put out early in September an interview with Alison Brown celebrating 30 years of Compass Records, which was an absolute treat. Really enjoyed that one. I love Alison. She's just such a kind of great person to have a conversation with. She's done so much cool work over the years, and that was just fascinating for me. So if you're interested in roots music, record labels, Alison Brown, kind of how the music industry landscape has changed over the past 30 years. It's a really interesting conversation. Go and dig that one out. I also talked to Ben Garnett, who has a new record called Kite to Keep, instrumental, kind of experimental stuff. Really, really good record. I love it. It's out in a couple of weeks, but I've been really enjoying that one. And I would urge you to listen to that when it comes out. I will give you a reminder maybe in the next briefing, because that's definitely one you want to listen to. And then this week gone, I put out an interview with Maddie Denton of East Nash Grass, which was a really fun one. I was supposed to interview Maddie a few weeks before, and I'd been ill and had to reschedule, and worked out we'd both be at IBMA, so decided to do it on the Friday in Chattanooga. And on the Thursday night, she won Fiddle Player of the Year at the IBMA Awards, so it was really fun to get to chat to her the day after that. I love East Nash Grass. Maddie's great. I had such an interesting conversation with her, so go and dig that one out as well. Coming up next, I also did a bunch of interviews while I was at IBMA with various people to do with Dark Shadow Recordings, which is the label that is run by Stephen Mogin and his partner Jana Mogin. They have, it's a pretty small kind of family label. They record everything themselves. It's all produced in-house, but they're fascinating. I've talked to them plenty of times. Stephen's been on the podcast before, as have some of their artists. And I just had the opportunity to talk to a few people about various Dark Shadow things and thought, you know what, let's just put them all together and do it in Chattanooga. So I talked to Becky Buller, who's been on the podcast before, talking about her record Jubilee, but she's got a new record of covers out, so she is on that. I talked to Ben from Henhouse Prowlers, I talked to Jana about Dark Shadow, and I talked to Rick Farris, singer, songwriter, luthier, all-round interesting guy. So those are all going to come out as one episode in a couple of weeks. Kind of a Dark Shadow IBMA special, so keep an eye out for that. And after that, I've got a conversation I'm recording in a couple of days with Daryl Anger. He has put out Volume 2 of Diary of a Fiddler, double album that is just, fantastic set of duets with a really wide range of fiddle players. So that's coming your way as well. So plenty of good stuff coming on the podcast. There are also another couple of kind of guests coming on to pick classic albums. A couple of people have been on the podcast before. One I reached out to about a particular record because I know it was the first he bought and he loves it, and so we're going to talk about that. The other one emailed me and said, I would love to come back on the podcast, please can I pick a record? So I'll tell you more about those two when they're a bit nearer. But there's so much good stuff coming. I'm booked up for the rest of this year, and I cannot wait to have these conversations and put them out. That is it. If you want to support Bluegrass Jam Along, don't forget you can subscribe on Apple Podcasts for 99 cents a month. It's even cheaper if you do it annually. You can also follow the link in the show notes to support the podcast and make a one-off donation via Buy Me a Coffee. Or if you don't want to do that, which is totally fine, please do just recommend an episode of the podcast to somebody you know who loves bluegrass, because it is great to spread the word. That is it. Enough about me. Let's get on with the news and announcements, which is a section that we call Church Street News. And though I say enough about me, I'm sort of in this section as well a little bit. First bit of news is International Bluegrass Music Association's World of Bluegrass was in Chattanooga a couple of weeks ago, and it's the first year in Chattanooga. If you've been listening to the podcast, you remember I did some interviews around the shift. They've been in Raleigh for a few years, and it's the first of 3 years in Chattanooga. May well stay there longer. And I went out for a few days, and it was fantastic. I got to see a whole bunch of bands. The first thing I saw when I got there was Baylor Fleck, Bryan Sutton and Casey Dreesen in a little venue just playing some extraordinary music, which was amazing. And while I was there, I bumped into Darrell Anger, who I've interviewed a few times but never actually met, so that was lovely. I got to see Snash Grass and obviously interview Maddie, got to see Jason Carter and Michael Cleveland, with Jake Workman playing with them. Got to see several people play who've been on the podcast, Missy Raines, Bronwyn Keith Hines. Got to see Becky Buller sing my favourite song of hers, Jubilee, with Ned Luberecki. That was amazing. Got to chat to Ben Garnett, who I'd interviewed a couple of weeks before, and got to see Alison Brown play. It was all remarkable. It was an astonishing week for lots of reasons. Main bit, really, in a lot of ways, Billy Strings was there. He gave the keynote speech, but was just involved all week, and felt like a joyous thing. You know, he gave this keynote speech on the first night. He also turned up at the Momentum Awards to award Rainey Miyake with her Momentum Award, which is great. He played at the awards show. He was just wandering around the trade hall talking to people. I was lucky enough to be there for a glorious 15 minutes where he sat down and played Jimmy Martin's own personal Martin guitar that his family had brought, and were just letting people play. But Billy sat and played it for 15-20 minutes, sang some of Jimmy's songs, and Paul Williams came and sang with him, which was just incredible. And there was just, 50 of us stood around in a circle watching Billy Strings do that. And it was just, it felt like he was having a good time. It felt like everybody was happy to have him there. And it was just, it was glorious, really, really glorious. And the I'll put a link in the show notes so you can go and see who won all the main RBMA awards. Because there's 3 ceremonies. There's the Momentum Awards, there's the Industry Awards, which I was at because I was nominated for Broadcaster of the Year. I didn't win, but just such a great excuse to be out there. And then there was the main Thursday night awards. Billy won Entertainer of the Year. Alison Krauss was female vocalist. But it felt like Jason Carter and Michael Cleveland's night. They won Song of the Year, they won Album of the Year, they won Collaborative Recording of the Year. And that all felt really celebratory as well. But I'll stick a link in the show notes if you want to go and see who won which IBMA awards. And it got me thinking, just the interview that I did with Maddie Denton from East Nash Grass. She was sort of talking about that, and people saying, how do you feel about East Nash Grass losing Entertainer of the Year to Billy Strings? And she was like, nobody's losing here. Like, this is all good. We're all being celebrated. We all love music. This is all fantastic. And I thought that was lovely. And it made me sort of think, the only real kind of disappointment in not winning Broadcaster of the Year was not really about not winning the award. It's like, I wasn't expecting to, but it meant I didn't get to publicly thank some people who I really wanted to. So I'm going to do that now, really quickly. So many people have supported this podcast. All of the people who listen, all of my guests who come on, but a few people particularly this year have been great. I want to thank Michael Daves, I want to thank Becky Buller, and I want to thank Darrell Anger, because all have been very supportive this year, and I really appreciate it. I want to thank Mike Marshall, who, along with Darrell, have really supported and kind of mentored me almost in my quest to pull on some threads of instrumental string band music. They've been a great support, and I very much appreciate that. I want to thank the Collins guys for sponsoring the podcast for a while now. It was fun hanging out with them at IBMA. That was wonderful. And just, everybody, all of you, thank you. It's, moments like being nominated for award are great, but actually it's the week in, week out thing of just putting this together that I enjoy. And Yeah, thanks. Simple as that, really. Other bits of news. One of them came out of IBMA, actually. I was wandering around one afternoon on my way back to my hotel to cool down in the aircon for a bit before I came back to watch more music. And walking through the crowd on his own, I spotted somebody I recognised. It was Paul Coet from Hawktail and Punch Brothers. And I've spoken to Paul a couple of times on the podcast, but not met him. So I stopped him and we had a really cool chat for 20 minutes. And the good news that came out of that is that Punch Brothers are working on a new record. They're about halfway through it. It's going to be a while till that comes out, but I'm a huge Punch Brothers fan. So that's great news. Another bit of Punch Brothers related news is that Chris Thile has volume 2 of his Bach Sonatas and Partitas coming out very soon on None Such Records. I'll remind you when that's out, but that is also going to be cool. One thing I'm very much looking forward to, that I think is going to be next year, but they've started sort of making some little announcements about it now. Bryan Sutton, 2006, released a record called Not Too Far From the Tree, which is a bunch of guitar duets of him with Doc, Norman, Turner. I mean, just a list of everybody who's everybody on the guitar at that point in time. One of my favourite records. And there's a volume 2 coming out with a bunch of new people, kind of next generation, and that is going to be exciting. More info on that when it comes. But I'm very much looking forward to that one. What other news? Steve Earle is now a member of the Grand Ole Opry. I'm a huge Steve Earle fan, and The Mountain is one of the records that really got me into bluegrass in the first place, so that was cool to see. And just a nod to I'm With Her, who won Song of the Year at the Americana Music Awards for Ancient Light. If you remember, I had a quite extraordinary chat with Sarah Watkins about that album, Wild and Clear and Blue, a couple of months ago. If you missed that, go and listen. That was just the most beautiful hour of conversation. I loved it. But that is it. There's a lot of news there. I'll put a link into the IBMA Awards. Go and check that out. But yes, let's move on to the new releases, which is The Grass is New. And first, let's go through a few singles that are out. Alison Brown and Steve Martin have a track called Dear Time with Jackson Browne and Jeff Hanna. That is off their new record, which is called Safe, Sensible and Sane, which is out the 17th of October. I'll stick a link in the show notes because you can pre-order it now on Compass Records. But yes, Alison Brown and Steve Martin, they've got a new single, Dear Time, and the full record's on the way in a couple of weeks. Somebody else with a new single, Wes Corbett, who you may remember came on the podcast in the early days to chat about his beautiful record Cascade. He has a new album on the way. There's a track out now called Salmon Run from that record. The album's called Drift, and that is also on the way and is available for pre-orders now, so I'll stick a link in the show notes. Trey Hensley, who won Guitar Player of the Year at IBMA, been on the podcast before a couple of times. He's moved on from his duet with Rob Ickes, and he's got a solo project on the way. The first track is called Can't Outrun the Blues, and that is out now. Unfaithful Servants have a new single called Fallen Angel, and there is a track from Damn Tall Buildings called Blue Bayou. I will stick all of these in the Grass is Mostly New playlist. There's a link in the show notes. If you want to get some new music, it's a great place to go and find some. As I discover stuff that's out, I just add it to that list, and it's a nice way for me just to keep in touch with new releases as much as anything. So those singles are Alison Brown and Steve Martin, Dear Time, Wes Corbett's Salmon Run, Trey Hensley's Can't Outrun the Blues, Unfaithful Servants, Fallen Angel, and Damn Tall Buildings, Blue Bayou. There's also a couple of albums I wanted to mention, a couple of reissues and a couple of new things. And first one is East Nash Grass. Their new record, All God's Children, is out now. And I absolutely love this record. I listened to it a lot, preparing to interview Maddie Denton. But it's great. They're both their last two albums. I've really enjoyed them. They've got such a cool sound, such a cool groove. I love the energy of what they do. Like Last Chance to Win, the previous album. It's just a fairly short album, like half an hour long. Does its thing, gets in, gets out, and leaves you with your foot tapping and a smile on your face. I cannot recommend it enough. Go and listen to East Nash Grass, All God's Children. Such a good record. Second one I've been listening to quite a lot recently, Daryl Anger's Diary of a Fiddler Volume 2. And and that's out now. It's a double album featuring a huge range of fiddle players that Daryl has worked with, mentored, taught, hung out with over the years. Very much a volume 2 of Diary of a Fiddler, which came out, I think, 1999. Very much like the Bryan Sutton thing. It's a follow-up to a much, much loved album. Do check that out as well, and we'll be talking about that on the podcast in a couple of weeks with Daryl. So go and have a listen to that. Then there's a couple of re-releases, both from Craft Recordings. Tony Rice Backwaters has been remastered and is out again on vinyl. That is out now. They've also put out a vinyl reissue of Alison Krauss Live, the sort of classic double album that I'm sure lots of you know and love. So if you're into your vinyl, go and check those out. I'll stick links in the show notes to those so you know where to find them. That is it for The Grass is New. Let's move on to Scroll On Buddy, which is just something I've spotted on social media and thought you might be interested in. And in Scroll On Buddy, so it's something that is IBMA related. I went to IBMA and discovered a week or two beforehand Billy Strings was doing a keynote speech. And I wasn't there for it. I didn't arrive till Wednesday, and it happened on the Tuesday. But as I was on the train to Heathrow Airport in London to stay at an airport hotel the night before I flew out, I watched it on a live stream on Facebook. Just sat on the train, kind of in a little world of my own, watching Billy, and then the interview that followed it. And it is still up on Facebook, and I think it's on YouTube as well. I'll dig out a link because it's fascinating. I think there's it's clear Billy loves bluegrass and the community, and it's clear that is reciprocated. And it's very easy for somebody who's reached that level of success, stardom, whatever you want to call it, to step away from things or feel like they can't be around. And he was, and I celebrate him for wanting to do that, but I celebrate IBMA for reaching out and make that happen, and the whole thing just felt a bit joyous. So go and watch Billy Strings' keynote speech from IBMA. It's fascinating, really interesting. There's a link in the show notes. Go and check that out. And then the final bit really is just the In My Ears This Week bit, which is the In My Ears This Month bit, really, and the things I've been listening to more than anything. Daryl's Diary of Fiddler Volume 2. I have very much been enjoying the East Nash Grass record, and I've been listening to, I went to see George Jackson and Brad Kolodner play at IBMA, kind of old-time fiddle and clawhammer banjo duet. George has been on the podcast before. Didn't know Brad. It was nice to meet Brad, but I'd never seen them play together, and that was fantastic. And I've been listening to some stuff of theirs, both solo records and their last duet record as well, which I think came out last year. Check them out. They're a lot of fun. They've got a really cool sound as well. That is it. Hope you like this new format. I hope that's not too much news in one go. All the info's in the show notes if you want to just remember any bits I've talked about. I want to find some links to go and download, pre-order, any of that kind of stuff. That is it. Don't forget to check back next week, because it'll be the Dark Shadow IBMA interviews. The week after will be Daryl. But that is it. Have a great week. I will see you soon, and happy picking. Bluegrass Jam Along is proud to be sponsored by Collins Guitars and Mandolins, each and every one built from the sound up in Austin, Texas.